Good morning, everybody. We're going to give it about 2 minutes just to give time for everyone to get into the webinar this morning, and then we'll go ahead and get started here. We'll give it about one more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar of the online reviews. All right. Well, welcome and thank you for participating in our webinar today, Online Reviews 101. I am Jenny Tukeski, the Programming and Communications Manager here for the Better Business Bureau Midwest Plains. Just a couple of housekeeping things just to let you know about. We are recording today's webinar, and later on this afternoon or within 24 hours, I will actually send you a follow-up email with a link to the webinar, but also the presentation information that is being discussed today. So then that way you have it as a future reference, but you can also go ahead and share it with other coworkers within your organization, business, in case they were not able to make the webinar today. Also, if you have any questions today throughout the presentation, please just go ahead and put them in the Q&A section, and we will get to those questions throughout the time frame today. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We're very fortunate and excited today to have with us Myra Bollingue, the Executive Vice President of the Review Solution at Third Coast Interactive. Myra oversees the company's strategies and initiatives by working closely with global brands, collaborating with national associations and organizations comprised of business owners, and also manages the partnership with the Better Business Bureau. Today, she will be talking about how reviews can have a positive impact on your business, the best methods for asking for a review, and also the effective ways to respond to those reviews that you receive. So with that, welcome, Myra, and it is all yours.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you to everybody for attending today's webinar. I have with me Emily Elliott, who is part of the review solution team over at Third Coast Interactive, and she will help field questions on today's webinar. And if you guys have any questions after the webinar on any topics we cover, she will be the person that will be able to help you out. So thank you, Emily, for on. Okay, and we will go ahead and get started. So, of course, right off the bat, we'll talk about why online reviews are important. And it almost goes without saying, I think, especially if you're already attending this webinar, I think you recognize as a business that online reviews have become increasingly important to consumers. And of course, if they're important to consumers, then they're important to businesses. And so, of course, 96% of consumers are reading online reviews, and almost 3/4 of those consumers use 2 or more review sites when they're researching businesses online. I want to go ahead and say that the stats I'm presenting in the next few slides come from Bright Local's local consumer survey of this year. So that's the 2025 version. And I encourage you to look up the actual survey because they do publish pretty good insights yearly. Okay. And one of the things that I emphasize when I'm talking to businesses is yes, reviews are important, but recency of reviews are also important. And so 92% of these consumers that read online reviews care when a review was written. And in fact, almost half of the consumers, 47%, state that a review needs to be written within the past month to have an impact on their purchasing decision. And so really what that means is it's not enough to get a lot of reviews and then stop trying to get reviews. It basically becomes a part of your regular operations, or it should become part of your regular operations as a business, because asking for reviews consistently is how you get reviews within the past month. And if you think about it, of course, everybody on this webinar today might be a business owner or works for a business, but you are also a consumer. And if you think back to what you do when you're researching a business, you probably tend to look at newer reviews or sort by newest first, because instinctively you understand or you realize that people who have been to a business, within the past week, past month, probably had an experience that's going to be the most similar to yours if you were to patronize that business. And so in a lot of ways, an experience from a year ago with a particular business might not even be relevant to what you would experience today. Okay, off of that same vein, of course, everyone knows star rating and the number of reviews is going to be what consumers look at when they are evaluating a business. And so 72% of them will only consider businesses with a 3.5-star rating or higher. So, for those of you who are on this webinar, because you're struggling with low star ratings or average star ratings on a couple of the review sites for your business, we can talk about how you can start getting that star rating up. And on top of that, 69% of consumers need 20 or more reviews to trust the review rating, which again makes sense. So you can have a 5-star rating on multiple review sites, but if you only have a handful of reviews on each site, then the customers or potential customers that are taking a look at those reviews are going to be not necessarily suspicious, but they probably want more information, right? So yes, okay, you have 5-star reviews, but they'd probably be more likely to believe that 5-star rating if you had more reviews that averaged out to that 5 stars. And one thing that I've seen just since I've been doing this, and we've been working with reviews for over 13 years now, recent trend just within the past few years is customers are also expecting businesses to respond to the reviews that they receive. And so it's not enough to have 20 or more reviews with a 3.5-star rating or higher, and your reviews to be, largely from within the past month, at least the ones that the consumers are evaluating. But you have to be responding to these reviews as well. And in fact, 89% of consumers, are more likely to use a business that responds to all their reviews. So not just the positive ones, not just the negative ones, and not even, it's weird to just respond to the neutral ones, but essentially you have to respond to all your reviews, positive, negative, or neutral. And on top of that, 81%, which is a pretty big jump, from what this looked like last year, expect a business to respond within a week of receiving a review. And we'll touch more later on if it's even worth responding to a review if it's been over a week. But in general, customers are expecting businesses to respond to reviews, and they're expecting those responses to come fairly quickly after the review has been published. So the good news is we talk about how important reviews are to customers that are trying to determine whether or not they want to use your business for a particular product or service. But on the flip side, 96% of consumers are absolutely open to writing a review for a business. And so what that means is, as a business, you have to essentially use your current satisfied customers to make sure that their feedback is visible to any other potential customers that would, that would be interested in using your business. Now, I'll stop here to see if anybody has any questions or comments about the previous slides. But again, those statistics are really just meant to demonstrate just how important customer reviews are. But it's not enough to have customer reviews. You have to worry about how recent they are, that you're responding to them. And of course, overall, you have to have a very good customer review rating. Okay, these next couple of slides, I won't go over too much. I don't want to have to read bullet points to you all, but I do know that people always have questions on the types of review sites that they get reviews on. So first and foremost, we'll talk about BBB. There are a lot of businesses still, even though they're accredited, that don't know or aren't aware that you can get reviews on your BBB business profile. And the nice part about the BBB business profile reviews is, number one, they don't allow anonymous reviews. And in fact, the BBB actually requires the customer or the person leaving the review to verify at least one piece of their contact information. And so that's considered part of the BBB's review verification process. And because there is a review verification process involved, there's at least 3 business days before any review that's submitted is going to be published on the profile. And while there might be, depending on how actively you're trying to get reviews, that might be something that you don't necessarily appreciate, because when you get a review, you want it to be published right away. But one of the pros of that is that you can comment on a review before it's published. So you have that kind of the 3 business day window. So if you do get a review that you weren't expecting, and it happens to be a less than stellar review, maybe it's a negative review from one of your customers you didn't even realize was upset, you have the opportunity to actually append a comment to the review before it's published. And so when the review eventually does get published, then people reading the review can see your comment alongside the review. So that review doesn't get kind of a head start without you having the opportunity to respond to it, as is going to be the case, which we'll talk about in the next slide for a few of these review sites. The other thing that BBB does allow you to do, because again, there's that 3-day window, is once you're notified that a review for your business has been submitted, you can actually challenge that review if you don't believe it was left by somebody who had a marketplace interaction with your business. So if it happens to be a competitor or a disgruntled employee, or maybe it's just a mistaken consumer. Sometimes, consumers will mistake your business for another business that they did business with. And so you're able to actually let the BBB know, I don't think that this person who submitted a review for my business had a legitimate marketplace interaction with my business, and the BBB will actually take it from there. So again, that's kind of the positive about having that 3 business day window, is you can dispute the review if it's not something that you feel was left, in good faith, and you can also comment before a review is published. Okay, some other review sites I'm sure are familiar to you all is Google, Yelp, Facebook, and these are just the review sites that get a lot of the volume, and they're also non-industry specific. So of course, there's going to be review sites that are specific to your particular industry, like Health Grades. If you're in the medical industry, there's Angie, Home Advisor, for those in the contractor type businesses. But these 3 are some of the ones that, again, get a big chunk of the reviews, but they're not particular to any industry. Okay. The good news is none of these reviews, they all require some sort of account. And the Facebook review in particular is going to be tied to the person's Facebook profile. So they're less likely to be somebody you don't recognize, especially if it's tied to their real name, which a lot of times it's going to be if they have a Facebook profile. And same thing with Google and Yelp. They both require accounts. However, for both of these sites, if of course the review is approved, they're going to appear immediately. So it doesn't have that kind of 3-day leeway. So if you get a negative review on Google, for instance, it might be up for a couple of days before you even realize you received a negative review, because you don't get notified and you don't get an opportunity to respond before everyone else reads that review, although you can always respond anytime. With Yelp, the tricky part is they don't recommend all the reviews that are submitted. And so they have a kind of proprietary algorithm that determines which reviews they recommend, and only recommended reviews factor into your Yelp rating. And so if you have, a lot of 5-star reviews on Yelp, but these reviews are not recommended, it's not going to be factored into your Yelp rating. So there are definitely businesses who have a 3-star rating or below on Yelp, but they have a lot of 4 and 5-star reviews that should bring that rating up. But those reviews are, for all intents and purposes, are filtered. And so if that's an issue that you're running into as a business, definitely send us a message, because we have some things that you can try that could help, not have your best reviews be caught in that Yelp algorithm and essentially be filtered. So any other questions about that? And as Jenny said, this presentation is going to be shared with everybody who registered for the webinar. And so you can look over kind of these facts about each review site at a later date. You don't have to obviously memorize them all right now. Okay, so again, while consumers are more likely to use Google for online reviews, and you probably have noticed that Google business profiles have for any business that has a lot of reviews, that's going to most likely have the bulk of the reviews that they have online. Consumers still trust Better Business Bureau reviews the most. So again, the good news is people see that BBB torch, they tend to associate it with integrity, and they're more likely to trust that review, all things being equal. If you have a couple of bad reviews on Google, but great reviews on BBB, those BBB reviews are going to have a greater impact on a potential customer's opinion. The nice part too about, maybe Google getting the majority of reviews online is customers tend to expect businesses to have more Google reviews. And so, you can have maybe only 10 BBB reviews, and those are going to be a lot more impactful than 10 Google reviews, because the Google reviews, people expect you to have 20 or 30 or 40, but the handful of BBB reviews you have, especially if they're 5-star reviews, are going to have an outsized impact. Any questions about that or any of the other facts mentioned about the previous review sites? I don't think I see anything in the chat, so I will continue. Okay, so basically the BBB, having recognized this, that reviews are important to businesses and BBB reviews are the most trusted amongst consumers, they've partnered with Third Coast Interactive, which provides the review solution review platform. So to be able to offer that same review platform to all of their accredited businesses. And what that does is it helps these businesses with their BBB reviews. Okay. So it's very simple. It's an app that you, the business, downloads. So I do want to emphasize that your customer doesn't have to download anything. They don't even have to know an app exists, right? So you open up the app as a business, you can download it on a mobile device or a computer, which you'll see in a minute. And all you have to do is enter your customer's name and their cell phone number and hit send. Once you do that, again, very simple, they'll get a text requesting a BBB review from them. So once again, name, number, send. You, the business, is the one that has access to the app, that downloads the app. Your customer doesn't have to download anything. And if you have your customer's contact information, in your mobile device, which a lot of businesses I know keep all of their client info on their phone, or at least a phone designated for their business, then you can turn on the contact integration feature and you can actually pull directly from your address book on your phone to be able to send this review request. So you're not even having to actually type out your customer's full name or their cell phone number. So this cuts down on typos. Essentially, it works just like any other feature where you're using your contact list on your device. You start typing in the name. It's going to give you a drop down with options. You select the customer that you want to send the review request to, and that's where it sends. Okay. And so your customer receives this text message. And because you typed in their name, it's going to have their name as the text. So whether you use their first name or their full name, it's going to have that in the text message. In this case, has my name, Moira. And then thank you for choosing, and it's going to have your business name. So in this case, thank you for choosing Third Coast Interactive. Would you be so kind as to leave us a BBB review? And all your customer has to do is click that link. So as a summary, up until this point, you've had to type in their name and phone number or pull their contact information directly from your address book on your phone, and then your customer receives the text. So it removes a lot of the steps, not only in requesting a review, but for your customer to leave you a review, because at this point, they just have to click the link in the text message and actually leave the review for your business. And so what we aim to do with this app is try to remove as many of the steps from both the business side and the customer side. So really all the customer has to do is actually write the review. So they click the link, they write the review. Okay. So you might be wondering, well, why would I use the app when I am already requesting reviews from my customers a different way? And what I always say to businesses is you don't have to use this app to replace what you're already doing. So if you're already requesting reviews using a QR code at your business, or you're sending out emails, you can continue to do those things. The app can simply complement what you already have in place to get reviews. Now, the good thing about the app is, as you can see, what I just showed you is it's very easy. So you hit the name, or you enter the name and the number, hit send, and your customer just has to click the link to leave a review. So if you're asking them to leave you a review on your BBB profile, they might have to actually look for your profile and make sure they select the correct one and figure out where on the profile they can leave a review before they actually leave that review. So that's one, pro for using the app. Another one is because the app relies on text messages. Text messages tend to have a better engagement rate than emails. And so they have a better open rate and a better response rate when compared to emails. And again, you can still continue to use emails to ask for reviews from your customers if you wanted to, not stop what you're already doing. But again, the app complements what you already have in place, and the texts are most likely going to get a better conversion rate. Now, the thing about the app that I want to make sure everybody understands is if you get a review using the app, that review is going to come into BBB as basically designated as from a pre-verified customer. If you remember a couple of slides back, I mentioned that BBB requires that the customer verify at least one piece of their contact information, whether that's their phone number or their email address, before the review is going to get published. Because the app uses the customer's cell phone number, when the customer clicks the link in the text that you send, it simultaneously validates that cell phone number. And so the customer doesn't have to take that additional step of verifying their contact information. So again, what's nice about the app is it removes as many steps as possible from the customer. And so all they have to do is write the review. They don't have to take that additional step to independently verify their email address or phone number even after they write you a review. So again, that's what's nice about using the app. And of course, if you use the app, you get access to an app dashboard where you're able to track all reviews, or all review requests, and all reviews received by anyone within your company that's using the app. And so any questions about that? And one thing I will point out is, and I won't go into too much detail, but if, again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us after the webinar, is we let you track individual employees that are using the app to request reviews. And so you're able to determine if it's, Sally versus John that's requesting reviews, and if it's Sally versus John that's receiving the reviews as a result. Any questions about that? Okay, so talked about a tool, of course, the app that can help you get reviews, but for a lot of businesses, it's not enough to be provided with a tool. They have to feel comfortable in actually using the tool to request reviews. And so I'll go over some best practices that we've seen implemented in a lot of the businesses we've worked with throughout the years, and what's worked in terms of actually resulting in reviews getting published online. One of the things I always stress is whenever possible, ask at the point of service. Now, this can vary depending on the type of business that you are, but by and large, when a customer is happy with what you provided, whether it's a product or a service, they're going to be the happiest when you first provide it. Okay. And again, you can think about to your own behavior as a customer, excuse me. And if you're more likely to write a review, for instance, when you first frequent or get to a business and you're finishing up, or 2 weeks after the fact, when maybe the memory of that business is still pleasant, but you don't have as many of the details easily accessible in your mind, just because people in general interact with so many businesses just in even a given week, right? And so ask at the point of service. And this is something that the app makes very easy to do because, again, you can just take out your phone and request the review right then and there. Now, what I was saying was point of service can vary depending on the type of business you have. So if you don't have the kind of business where you ever really have a face-to-face interaction with the customer, you have some sort of interaction with them. So whether that's somebody calling to follow up and make sure, everything is okay, that could be a good time to ask for a review because you're having an interaction at the same time. Or essentially any time that you communicate with your customer, you can ask for a review at that time. Okay. One of the ways that we can implement asking at the point of service is something I call the perfect walk. And this is really easy to implement, especially if you're a contractor type of business. So any kind of the trades-based services, this is pretty easy to adapt into what you're already doing. And it goes something like this. So if you, for instance, just finish cleaning carpets, right? Whether it's at somebody's home, at somebody's office, you just finished cleaning the carpet and you want to ask this customer for a review. You'll say something like, customer reviews have become very important to our business. Would you mind leaving us a review? And at that point, 9 times out of 10, that customer is going to say yes. And if they say yes, then you take out the app, enter the phone number and their name, or name and phone number in that order, hit send. And if they have their cell phone on them, then they will get that text requesting a review right away. So this is a couple of benefits. Number one, they know that they've received the text because they'll hear it, or you'll hear it go off, or their phone will vibrate. And another thing is you can confirm that they've received the text, right? So you'll know if you mistype their phone number or something along those lines, or maybe you're using a different phone number than they want used. So basically you send them the text, and then confirm that they've received it. So already there's kind of an implied obligation to do something. And then this part is very important. So once you confirm that they have received the text requesting a review, you let them know that you're going to make sure everything looks good one last time. And then you're actually going to walk away and do just that. This accomplishes a couple things. Number one, it's not awkward for either you or your customer because you're not watching them write a review for your business. And so they're more likely to be honest because you're not watching them write that review. And that's what you want. You don't want to influence their opinion in any way. You want to make sure that the review that they submit is authentic, and is actually their opinion, right? So, because if it's not honest, it doesn't really benefit you as a business. So you, again, they start writing the review, you're actually checking on your work. And then of course, that's the second benefit, is it does give you an opportunity one last time to make sure everything looks good. So you didn't leave any of your tools behind, you didn't make a mess. Essentially, that the work that you've completed is within the standards of your company. Wait a few minutes, come back to your customer, ask them if they had any questions, and most likely they've written a review before you even leave the job site. And so that's why I think this particular approach is very effective, because you're not watching them write a review, but you do get a review more often than not before you leave. And you can, again, adapt this approach as you need. It's going to be easier to adopt if you're somebody that's in the trades versus not. And if this is something that you want assistance, coming up with a strategy to have something like this, contact us after the webinar, and that's something we can work with you and your business on. Okay. Another thing that businesses forget is, success comes from the top down. And so it's very important that you make asking for reviews a part of your overall process as a business. And in this way, you make it also a lot easier for your team to ask for reviews, because they don't even have to think about it, right? So you can implement it into whatever day-to-day process you've already established. And it's no different than having clock in procedures. Sometimes your salespeople have steps that they have to follow when they pitch a potential customer, and then they're sending them the proposal. So if you just implement it or incorporate it into the things that your team members are already doing, it makes it a lot easier for them to follow, and it makes it easier for you to hold them accountable if they don't. Okay. A couple of other things. One thing I do want to make sure I emphasize as we're talking about asking for reviews is, do not ever, ever, ever offer money, discounts, or gifts to your customers in exchange for writing a review. So this is for a few reasons. Number one, the Federal Trade Commission, also known as the FTC, has established kind of a guide to make sure that people aren't essentially bribing their customers to get good reviews online. And of course, it's in the best interest of the FTC to make sure that customers still trust stuff like reviews and customer feedback online, because if those customers start to doubt reviews and things like that, then it really erodes trust in the overall marketplace between businesses and consumers. Okay, and depending on the type of offense you've committed, you can get fined by the FTC. So that's definitely not something you want to even attempt. The other thing is, it's going to be against Better Business Bureau policies. So especially if you're an accredited business, that's not something that you want to do. And it's also against a lot of the terms and conditions of the major review platforms that you're trying to get reviews on. And so worst case or best case scenario, the review in question that you offered in exchange for a discount, let's say, gets deleted, right? That's the best case scenario. Worst case is you get a warning on your profile, letting everyone know that you've been caught exchanging reviews for some sort of compensation. Sometimes you might even get banned off of a review platform. So again, you definitely don't want to offer anything in exchange for review. There is an exception, and it's if you want to offer a business or a product in exchange for someone's honest feedback, and you want to offer this new service or product for free. If that's the case, the person leaving the feedback has to explicitly state that they were offered this particular thing for free in exchange for their honest feedback. And a lot of times that applies more to kind of like the health and wellness industry. There's a new product that they want their customers to try, or a new product that they want to start offering, and they want to make sure that it gets positive feedback before they do start offering it to everybody at large. Few other best practices, and we talked about this a little bit already, is give everyone in your company the ability to request reviews. Pretty much anybody who has any kind of interaction with a potential or current customer is going to have the ability to influence that person's opinion about your company. And so it's always good to give everybody that ability to get a review from them. One of the things that make it difficult for, especially if a company is just starting to get reviews, is it's not clear whose responsibility it is to manage the reviews. So depending on the size of your company, put one person or department in charge of reviews. And this doesn't necessarily have to be that person's only responsibility. So you can have this person doing other stuff in addition to reviews, but make sure everyone knows that anything review related is the responsibility of this person or this department. And this will make it easy for you to, let's say you get a negative review, everybody knows it exists, but maybe nobody knows who's supposed to respond to it, or nobody knows if they're supposed to follow up with a customer. So essentially, making sure there's one person that's in charge of it makes it easier to manage the reviews that you do receive. Another thing is holding employees accountable, which goes hand in hand with incentivizing your employees. And number 3 and number 4 on this page is really only made possible if, again, you make reviews part of your process as a business and you kind of enforce it from the top down. And so if you remember, the app does have a dashboard where you can track the review requests that are being sent out. And this is a way that you can hold your employees accountable because you can see who's requesting reviews like they're supposed to and who's not. And in addition to that, again, you can incentivize your employees. You can't reward your customers for leaving a review, but you can certainly reward your employees for getting great reviews. And so not only do you monitor, okay, everybody's requesting reviews like they should, but you should be able to see which of your team members gets great reviews. And so if Sally is outperforming everybody in terms of the number of 5-star reviews she's getting, that gives you additional insight into her performance and quality as an employee that maybe you didn't have previously, right? A lot of times when customers write reviews online, they don't necessarily mention the employee that they had an interaction with. And on the BBB profile, they're not actually even supposed to mention the person's full name because it's considered personal information. And in this way, you know exactly from the dashboard which review is tied to which employee because you can see which employee requested it. So again, you can always reward your employees. Something as simple as, the person that requests the most reviews by the end of the week gets a free lunch, or maybe they get a raffle ticket for every 5-star review that they get, and then you hold a raffle quarterly, something along those lines, where you're rewarding your employees that are doing what they're supposed to do, that maybe you didn't have a chance to really see their performance before you started asking for customer feedback. Another thing too is it boosts morale amongst your team, and a little healthy competition never hurt anybody. So again, and then doing all of this, it's always important to have an effective follow-up strategy. And this is where it's important that you have just that one person or department that's expected to handle that, because they know who's supposed to be following up with customers when they do leave reviews. And if you want to follow up with customers that didn't leave a review, but you requested a review from. Any questions about that? Before I move further? Okay.
I actually have a quick question just in regards to like follow up. So, would you recommend if somebody does not hear or get a response from the initial text message that they send for a review to follow up and send another request?
The short answer is yes. I do recommend that. A lot of times it depends on the type of business you have, and how many customers you see. So if you are more of a high volume shop, it might not be feasible to follow up with everybody that doesn't leave you a review because you're requesting so many reviews daily. Another way to kind of think about it is if you have a lot of repeat customers. And so your repeat customers that you've requested a review from and haven't left you a review, it might make more sense to follow up with them just because they've patronized you so many times. And depending on the type of relationship you have with that particular customer might dictate how many times you follow up with them. So if you have a customer that you've only interacted with once, maybe one follow-up is plenty. But if you have a regular that that's been your customer for years and years and years, you might feel more comfortable following up with them more than one time, or more frequently. So, but yes, Jenny, that is a great question.
Thanks.
Okay. So we talked about, of course, this tool that you can use to get reviews, the best practices when requesting reviews and making sure that your entire company is on board so that it's a team effort to get feedback. And that's going to result in you getting reviews. So now that you've received reviews, you want to respond to them. If you remember at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that 89% of consumers are more likely to use businesses that respond to all of their reviews. Okay, so just some quick do's and don'ts. By no means an exhaustive list. If this seems like common sense to you, you're already ahead of the curve, because I think if any of you start to read some of the responses that businesses have, especially the negative reviews about their business, then you can quickly realize that maybe some of this stuff isn't as obvious as you as you'd think. So number one, and I've already reiterated this a couple of times, is respond to all of your reviews. Positive, negative, neutral. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. And I know that for a lot of businesses, it's actually more, I guess they're more likely to respond to negative reviews because they want to defend themselves. But it's, you should thank the people that leave you positive reviews as well. And of course, anybody who leaves you like a 3-star review or a 2.5-star review should also get a response. And it goes without saying, or it should go without saying, that any response you have, be courteous and polite, regardless of the content of the review. So whether it's unflattering or not, keep in mind that the audience for all of your review responses is going to be everybody that reads reviews online. So it's not just going to be the person who left a review, and there's a chance that maybe that person's not even reading your response. Now, the flip side to responding to your negative reviews is, especially if you didn't realize that this particular customer had a less than stellar experience with your business, this is your opportunity to bring them back. So just by how you respond, and I've seen this, I'm sure you guys have too, where a business response has actually resulted in the customer changing the review or updating it to say, even if they can't change their review rating, to say their response to this situation has, was professional, and I recommend them for how they handle this. So again, it's your opportunity to bring back a disgruntled customer, and it's your opportunity to demonstrate to potential customers that you can be professional even if somebody leaves an unflattering review of your business. One of the things that I also recommend is to apologize. Now, you don't necessarily have to admit fault. And depending on what the subject of the review is, you might not want to for legal reasons, but that doesn't mean you can't apologize for the experience that they had. Because if somebody had a frustrating enough experience to leave you a negative review, I'll assume that that's not what most customers can expect to experience. And so you can always acknowledge their frustration and apologize that their experience was not up to your standards from your customers. And again, that apology can definitely go a long way. Even if it doesn't bring back that particular customer, other potential customers reading that will be impressed by your professionalism and acknowledging this customer's frustration. In the same vein, don't get too emotional or defensive. That's easier said than done, and I completely understand, especially if a business, if you've had a business for decades and decades and decades, and somebody just goes online to trash it. It's 100% human nature to want to respond defensively or emotionally. However, this doesn't do you any favors. Again, keep in mind that the people reading this response is going to be the internet at large. So it's not just the person that left that review. If you do feel particularly emotional towards a review, write down what you want to say, like with a pen or paper, just get it all out and then throw it away. Okay. Or wait at least 24 to 48 hours before responding, so you're not responding off of pure emotion. While I typically recommend responding as soon as you can to a review, remember that, consumers like it when businesses respond within a week. It's better to wait a couple days and make sure that your response is professional rather than responding immediately and it's very defensive. Okay. In addition to that, don't go into too much detail or make it personal or start attacking this particular customer. Depending on your industry, you might even not allowed to mention any details about this customer. And that's the case, in the medical industry and financial services. You can't really reveal any kind of information about the people that leave you a review. But also, again, it just looks unprofessional. You don't want to debate the issue online for people to read everything as it unfolds. And so I recommend, if you must, or if it's something that you do want to address, but you don't want to get into it online, always offer to take it off of the review platform. So with a phone call or an email or some other way to contact you for the reviewer. And of course, don't speculate on this reason why a customer is frustrated. Don't speculate on the review, and don't speculate even when you're talking to them outside of the review platform. And in fact, there's a chance that what I mentioned earlier, it might be a customer or a person that confused your business with another business. And so in that case, there are ways to kind of flag a review depending on the review platform that it's on, to let the review site know that this particular review was not meant for your business. And for the BBB, it's pretty straightforward. And then depending on the review platform, you might have to flag it or actually submit a ticket directly to that review platform. Any questions on that? Okay, so we talked about getting reviews, responding to these reviews. And now that you have these great reviews and that you've responded to them, you can actually leverage your reviews. And so one thing I do want to point out is reviews absolutely impact your web rankings. Okay, so I won't go into too much detail, but for those of you who are watching this and know a little bit about SEO, or maybe you already pay an agency to quote unquote do SEO for your business website, one of the things to keep in mind is organic search still reigns supreme. So organic just means that the search results are not being paid for. If you've done any kind of web search in the last few years, whether that's Google that you're using, which is going to be the #1 search engine by and large, or Bing or another search engine, the ones that do offer some sort of ads, you probably see ads when you perform any kind of search. Organic just means they're not ads. And there's definitely room for ads, and I understand that it's effective to pay for ads, but the majority of website traffic still comes from organic search. So most of the people that are going to your website got there not because of an ad that you paid for, but through other means, right? They did a search for your business and they came to your website organically. Now, the reason this is important is because third-party review sites, including the BBB, and in fact, the BBB has a very, very high reputation with search engines. The third-party review sites like Yelp, like Facebook, Home Advisor, Angie, any of those carry a lot of weight with search engines, because search engines tend to look at them as trustworthy, especially, of course, the more legitimate review platforms, right? And the bigger ones that you've heard of. So 50% or these reviews that are on these sites carry a majority of the ranking factor weight. And all that means is it's one of the factors that determine where on a particular search page your website ends up. So if you put those two facts together, that organic search is still the majority of traffic to your website, and reviews on third-party review sites carry a lot of the factor weight, the reviews that you're getting on these sites have a lot of influence on where your website ranks and if a customer is going to click on your website. So referral from these third-party review sites can significantly bolster your SEO. What that looks like is a customer is researching for a plumber, right? So they search for plumbers in Omaha, Nebraska. They take a look, there's a bunch of businesses that show up, but your business shows up a little bit higher because of a combination of the great reviews that you have and also how recent the reviews are. Maybe I'm looking on Angie and I see, wow, this particular plumber has a lot of great reviews. I click from there to your review site. That is referral traffic that you did not pay for, that benefits you obviously positively, because once you get somebody to your website, it's a lot easier for them to start using you or give you money as a customer using a business. So I did want to point that out. Just want to make sure that people understand that this isn't going to replace, whatever you're already doing for SEO. And I'm not saying that paid ads are bad. And if they're working for you, obviously continue to do that. But this again will complement what you're already doing or you're already paying for. And again, it's completely free advertisement. Any questions on that? Okay. Other ways that you can use and leverage your reviews is, of course, feature them on your website. A lot of review site platforms allow you to embed reviews directly from these sites. Google Business Profile is one. It's very easy to do, and people can actually see your reviews in real time. You can also feature your reviews on your social media, especially if you have a Facebook profile as a business and you're getting reviews on Facebook. It's easy for you to display those reviews on your Facebook page. And you can also feature them on other social media sites. You can print out the reviews on any collateral, like physical collateral that you maybe distribute to potential customers, whether it's brochures, postcards that you mail out, things like that. You can start featuring some of the reviews that you get on there. And then, of course, there's testimonials that you can receive directly onto your website. So instead of, taking reviews on your Google profile or your BBB business profile, you can actually collect reviews directly on your website and then display them as they come in. Now, always double check that you do have permission to use the reviews depending on the review site platform you're getting the reviews from. And if it's, somebody in person that's giving you a testimonial, make sure that you have their permission to publish it. Okay, so after knowing basically why reviews are important, how to collect and get reviews from your customers, how to respond to these reviews and leverage these reviews to further boost your business, how can you actually measure how you're benefiting from reviews? The number one thing is evaluate where you are today. And that's very easy. I call it a review snapshot, but all that means is just go ahead and look at your business online, whether that's doing a Google search or looking at your individual review site profiles. Look at where you are today, how many reviews you have on the different review site platforms, what your review ratings are. When is your most recent review? Is your most recent review from 3 months ago? Did you get one yesterday? Something along those lines. Just take a note of all of that and put it with today's date. And then if you have access to your Google Search Console, and there's a chance that your website administrator does, what that does is it actually measures not just the traffic that's going to your site, but the increase in traffic and what people are searching to get to your site. And so you can start to evaluate if there's a correlation between you getting more reviews online and the increased traffic to your site. So that's one way to measure it. Another way is your Google Business Profile metrics. So if you have access or you're the admin to your Google Business Profile, it's very simple. It shows you how many views you're getting and how many clicks. And of course, traditional wisdom will tell you that the more reviews you get on Google or your Google Business Profile and the higher your rating, the more clicks you're going to get or the more interaction, because people actually want to use your business. So that's another way to measure that. Or the tried and true, how did you hear about us? So if you ask your customers that you're getting now how they found out about you, and see how many of them are saying, hey, I wanted to use you, or I found out about you because you had really good online reviews. So these are just the ways that you can see just the impact that reviews are having on your business. Really quickly, we talked about the free app. There is an upgrade. So if you wanted to get reviews on sites other than BBB, there's an upgrade to an app that's going to allow you to do that. It's also going to allow you to monitor your reviews in one place. And it has a couple of extra customization features that you don't have on the free app. If that's something you're interested in, please feel free to contact us after the webinar. Okay, bottom line is reviews make you a better business. So whether it's negative, positive, or neutral reviews, it's going to give you insight on what your current customers think. So, of course, the negative reviews, you can look for patterns. There's AI technology that can do that summary for you if there's the same keywords or phrases are being repeated, especially in your negative reviews. And of course, it tells you maybe what you need to improve upon or what you need to clarify. So, for instance, if you keep getting the same complaint in a particular policy that you have, even though you think you've made it clear, maybe you need to change that policy or make it even clearer, right? If it's the most common misunderstanding among your customers. Of course, positive feedback is going to reinforce what you're doing well. Maybe you're considering getting rid of a particular service or product, and then you realize it's the most popular service or product or the ones that you get the most positive reviews on. So maybe you decide not to get rid of it. And neutral reviews are going to show you the easiest areas to improve. I consider this the low-hanging fruit because it's a lot easier to go from 3 stars to 5 stars than 1 star to 5 star, depending on the area of improvement. Okay, so if you're an accredited business and you want to get started with the BBB Review app, just log into your business account or you can contact your local BBB rep, which you'll see Jenny's information on here shortly. And if you're not currently accredited and you happen to come across this webinar and you would like more information on BBB accreditation, which of course comes with the app that I just discussed, then please contact your local Better Business Bureau office. And then here is the information for my company. If you have any questions about anything we covered in today's webinar, there's a website, yourcustomerreviews.com, our toll-free number, 888-649-6140, and our email address, support@thereviewsolution.com. Okay, and I'm turning it over to you, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Myra. All right, just so real quick, we just wanted to let you know about our business newsletter. If you're not already signed up for it, you can go ahead and get signed up by scanning the QR code. And again, this will all be in the follow-up email that I sent out later on today to you. With the business newsletter, it will give you updated information, insights within the business, local BBB events. On June 5th, actually, we'll be in Lincoln, Nebraska, hosting 2 different benefits of accreditation event, and then also for new AB. So if you know of somebody who would like to become accredited, it's a great opportunity for them to come and talk to us in person about that. And then it also just talks about the discounts that we also offer too. So that does come out on a monthly basis. Next slide. Here's my contact information. If you have any ideas of a webinar or an event, or if you'd like us to come out in person and talk to your organization or company, or even if you in your church you would like us to come out and talk, please contact me. I love to talk to you about those opportunities and go from there. On behalf of the Bureau, we thank all of you for your time today. I know everyone's schedules are always so busy, so we greatly appreciate you guys coming out today and listening and learning about Review Solution. I hope that you're excited to get out there, and if you haven't already implemented the Review Solution, that you are getting ready to do so and excited about the difference that you can see with that. Lastly, we would like to say a special thank you as well to Myra and Emily for your time. I know you guys are extremely busy, so thank you for an hour of your time today and educating all of us about the reviews and the positive impacts that they can have on a business. Lastly, we greatly appreciate your feedback too. We're always striving to do better and be the best. So please scan the QR code and let us know how you felt about the webinar today. So with that, if there's nothing else, again, we thank you all for your time. Myra and Emily, thank you. And we look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.